So this hack is all about team time. So let's just move on. We're actually on page 11 of the workbook if you want to have a look through that. So how does this business give you back time? So as I mentioned before, the money is one thing, but time is so precious. And to be honest with you, we've probably had a bit more time this year than we've had any other year, given when we've been involved in lockdowns. I'm sure our Melbourne friends are going, you know what, I've got plenty of time, I don't need more time. But in terms of when you're running your business and balancing that with lifestyle, and when we do get to some sort of normal world, making the most of that time being effective in business, so then you can choose how you want to use that time is really, really key. And I've got to say, I think, as my business unfolded and as I started generating more and more returns, the time part of it has really been the gold that I really completely underestimated, especially when I, handed in my notice for my last day in my job. I'm going to share a bit more of that story a bit later on down the track. Having full flexibility in my time. I love Mondays now, and I get to choose my week. So if the kids' sports day's on, or school holidays a couple of weeks ago, I was down at the beach with them. Just having that full flexibility of time is probably the most amazing thing about this business. So, do you agree? Would you like to have control over your time? Let me know in the chat box. What would you like more of, time or money? Let me know in the chat box. We've got any feedback coming through? Yep, time. Yep, money. Look, it's great to have both, but it's the time things that are really, really key. And look, as I mentioned before, I've got my three girls at 10, 11 and 12. Yep, Lisa, yes, both. Yeah, look, true, you do need both. Once you've got the money though, then the time really becomes the key criteria. So yeah, I've got my girls 10, 11 and 12, and it's crazy, it's funny, we've got this funny little strategy at home. So I said to the girls, by the time you're 23, it's time for you to move out and go and stand on your own 2 feet and go and start living your life, be independent. And we just moved into our new home that we built in June this year. And my 12-year-old goes, Mum, you know what? I've only got 10 or 11 more years before I've got to move out. And I'm not going to be able to enjoy this house for very long. I'm going, are you kidding me? Like, that's 10, 11 years away. But the reality is, time is really, really flying. And I think back, it only seems like yesterday that I actually, crazily, I had 3 kids under 2.5. So my eldest was 2.5. My middle was 15 months when my youngest arrived. It was absolutely chaos. The whole strategy was a bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. And it's amazing now, but at the time it was the whole 2 years was a blur. Because at the same time I was, trying to learn about different strategies of wealth creation as well. It must have been a bit crazy. But the thing is, 10 years have gone. And then another 10 years, my girls are going to have their own life and be independent and living their own lives. And I want to make sure that you've got this time to really cherish it now before they flee the nest. And the way that my business runs now, I get to be there. So, I volunteer in the girls' tuck shop at school. And my God, the amount of mileage you get from your kids being able to work in the tuck shop when they can come to you and bring their friends and you hand over some ice blocks and some chips. They absolutely love it. So, and that's the thing that time gives you. It gives you choice. And so, and life is so precious. And if this year has taught us anything, you just don't know what's around the corner. And that's the reason, really why, the fundamental reason why I love this business. Once money is taken care of, it really does come back into time. So let's just keep moving on. So, so how, with this business, also what else I love is that, can you work from anywhere? And the answer to that is, yeah, absolutely. So let's move on. You can absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, I was at school holidays just recently. I was on the coast with the kids. So the kids were out it was actually pretty chilly that week, but the kids were out having fun in the sand, digging sand castles and exploring the beach. And I was I spend a few hours just working, tapping away and keeping the business afloat. But you can work from anywhere. So I mentioned before when I was in Canada, sitting in a hotel, if you've got your phone and laptop, it's a mobile business. It's actually a true work from anywhere business, and that's another thing that I really, really love about this business. Chris, yeah, it is so great working in the canteen. It's really those little small things in life that are really important. So in terms of, so why can you work from anywhere? It's because you've got, does everyone have a laptop and a computer? Now let me know in the chat box. I'm pretty sure you do, otherwise you wouldn't actually be on this live event. We all have laptops and computers, and they're the main tools that enable you to work from anywhere, which is what I love about this business as well. So let's keep going on. So certainly your tools are what enables you to give you time, because you can actually work from anywhere. But the other thing is really the power of your team. And this will also help answer your question around being new to development. So let's keep moving on here. So the power of your team is really what gives you back your time. And I'll explain to you in a bit more detail. Let's move on. So the key members of your team that you build around you, and this is certainly something I work with my students about, is, these are the 5 key categories of your team. So the first one is business, and I'll elaborate a bit more in detail. We've got design, we've got our consultants, we've got sales, and we've got construction. They're the 5 key categories of your team members that you build around when you're doing development. So let me elaborate on the business. So your business key team members is your accountant, and they're really, really key in terms of helping you structure your business, but also managing, your financial side of things. You've got your bookkeeper, so they manage all your, your BAS side of things as well. And then you've got your conveyancer, so they manage all of the property settlement side of things. And I actually use my conveyancer. I've got an absolute superstar conveyancer here who manages all of my contracts as well, and anything and just all the back end when you're doing settlements and when you're buying property. Having a good conveyancer really makes your life so much easier. I know in places like Queensland, Chris, you don't know what laptop to buy. Look, I think we can have a chat about that offline, but go into a lot of the stores. You've got Harvey Norman or tech stores. They're really good at helping you choose which laptop to buy, because the tools are really simple, and we'll talk about that soon as well. So you've got your finance broker. So in the expert session coming up, you're actually going to get a chance to speak to my finance broker. These guys are absolute superstars and play a huge part in your development business as well. And then you've got a lawyer. So a lawyer, I don't, fortunately, touch wood, I've hardly ever had to use a lawyer. I've used them to draw up joint venture agreements. But also, I think if you're in Queensland, they don't actually have conveyancers up there, so lawyers tend to do all your property settlements and things like that. But it's good to have a lawyer on the side there if you happen to ever need them. Hopefully you don't. But I find that with my business, I've been able to use conveyancers and my accountants to do a lot of that side of things. So they're your key business team members to have. Now, if we go into design team members, you've got your architect or your draftsperson. So they do all your design and your concept designs of your projects, and they're really, really key to making sure that you get design a great product. We then have your timber designers, so they get involved, and once you've designed your project, they then get involved in all whether it's timber or steel, depending on what materials you're going to be using for your house. They only get involved once you've got your design finished and approved, and you're getting all your working drawings done. And same with your energy efficiency designer. They are the ones that create your energy efficiency around, when you do your working drawings. And I'll teach a lot of this in more detail in my program, but they've got to sign off that your design is a 6-star, even 7-star energy rating now by looking at your materials and your windows, and it all sounds complicated, but you know what? You don't need to know that. That's what the energy efficiency designer needs to know. And same with your timber designer. They need to understand all the structural, your truss designs and all that sort of stuff. You don't. You just go, okay, here, you do this, and they produce the output. Landscape architect, that's only if required for your designer, and that's just to show what sort of landscape you're going to put in your development. I've only had to use those depending on your council. Some councils are really particular about that. They want landscape designs. A lot of architects and draftspeople can put landscape plans, designs in your plans as well. But you may need one of those, you may not. And then lastly, we have a traffic engineer as well, and that's only if you need that. So they're all your key design team members that are, you can use. And then what I do is with my students, I basically break down the whole process and go, okay, this is what you need for this person here, and this is when you go to this person here, like following a bouncing ball. Key consultants that I use. So in key consultants, we have got our land division or surveyor, and each state is slightly different. So with the land division consultant, they tend to look after all your subdivision side of things. So they take care of that, and then they engage the surveyor to do all your pegging and your marking. And the next one was a town planner. We've actually got a town planner in the inner circle, which is an absolute superstar, Lyndall. And then, so they get involved if you need any specific advice around understanding the planning rules, development plan, or if, for example, you have to go in front of a panel to support your case if it's been questioned by some other people. Town planners are absolute superstars to get involved in there. Or any other, any tricky planning thing, I always get a town planner involved. They're not cheap, but my goodness, they are worth their weight in gold if you have to go in front of a panel to argue your case, because they understand the development plan inside and out, and they can really help you get your project approved. Now, engineers, there's probably a couple of different main engineers that you'd use. So you'd have a civil engineer, so they, when you do your plans, you have like your architectural plans, and then you have your engineering plans. So that's where you provide like your stormwater and your retaining levels, and then you've got your structural engineering if you need any structural steel. They get involved as well, or a traffic engineer if you've got any tricky turning circles. They get involved as well. So I've had, with a couple of my developments, especially the ones that you saw, we had some really, really tight turning circles, so that's where we had a traffic engineer involved. So you don't need all of these people. Like if you're doing a simple, single-storey dwelling, you don't typically need a structural engineer unless you're putting some long, big beams in the house. Traffic engineer you wouldn't need if you've got street frontage. So, but it's more just being aware of the different types of consultants that you may need, so that if you come across a hurdle, you go, okay, now council are asking me for a landscape design. Who do I go to? Well, that's right, I go to a landscape engineer. So that's generally why I'm raising it, the different types of consultants you may need. And if you're doing big end of apartment developments or big end of town, then you have hydraulic consultants and other things. But in small scale developments, you don't typically need any of that. So it keeps it very simple. So our key sales team members, and these guys are critical, real estate agents. My goodness, a good real estate agent is worth your weight in gold. So they're the ones that are going to sell your projects. Project marketers, if you're selling more, larger projects, you can get project marketers involved, and these are the ones that are really skilled at selling off the plan. And same with your real estate agent. You want to make sure you've got a really strong real estate agent that has experience in selling, whether it's off the plan or on completion, but it's got a really good track record. If they haven't got a good track record, if you had a crappy sales agent working for you, it has a huge impact on your project. So it's really important to make sure you choose the right team members here. And then staging is where you put furniture in your houses before you sell, and they're useful at the very end of a project if you've got houses on completion to stage. So they're certainly your key sales team members that I use. And then just moving on from there, we have our construction team members. And so you've got your builder, and choosing your right builder, oh my goodness, can make or break your development experience, your whole development journey. If you have a crappy builder, you're in for a bumpy ride. You have a good builder and it's really, really smooth sailing. And I certainly work with my students to give them the key things to look out for when it comes to choosing your right builder. And certainly I go through a checklist of criteria to make sure that I've got really, really good builders working for me, because I want to be able to go, okay, here's my project, and for them to create a project outcome that I can sell. Whereas if you have a builder that goes under or a builder that produces a really crappy product, that affects your reputation and you just don't want that. So certainly making sure you choose a builder is really, really important. Now, project manager, back to answering that question, I can't remember who actually asked it around, I've never done development before, how do I get investors to back me? You can use a project manager to run your project if you want to. If you don't feel confident, you can get a project manager involved to run your first project for you and you shadow that and learn from them. That's certainly a strategy. I don't use project managers anymore. I used one for my very first one to help guide me through the process, but I don't use them anymore. But that's an option for you if you feel a bit nervous about the whole development process or the actual construction process. You can certainly. Kimberly, you've made the crap builder mistake. Oh God, sorry to hear that. Jonathan's asked, how do you minimise risk when choosing a builder? Oh goodness, there's a list of criteria that I run through. I probably don't have time to run through that all today, but certainly looking at the quality of their work and asking around, word of mouth is really, really key. And there's a number of other things as well, but they're certainly key things to make sure that you choose the right builder. And then in terms of your construction team, you've got your demolisher as well, demolisher guys to bulldoze your house. And then your building inspector. And they're an interesting one. So you can get building inspectors if you want to be involved throughout your building process to check the quality of your builder, or at the very end to come and do a building inspection to almost do like your defect report at the end so that you're confident that your builder has produced a quality report. When I sell my projects off the plan, sometimes it can get a bit nerve-wracking when purchasers get building inspectors involved, but I don't bother. I think that's actually a great thing because firstly, your building inspector will pick up any issues up front, and then the builder will go and fix all those issues that come out of your building inspection report as well during the builder's warranty period. So making sure, of course, you just don't get a nightmare building inspector. My goodness, I had one builder with a project a few years ago where the building inspector was a nightmare. I think he got satisfaction from making it really, really hard for builders and was quoting Victorian building standards, but it was a builder in South Australia. I think it must have been his little power trip. But most building inspectors are awesome and actually can work for you. At the end of the day, if there's anything wrong with your build, the builder's got to fix it anyway during the warranty period or anyway, so that gives you a bit of comfort. So that's really my key construction team that are involved. And look, with property development, you're think of yourself like a puppet master really. You don't need to know everything about building. You don't need to know everything about sales. You don't need to know everything about design. That's why you hire the experts to do that. So I remember one of my first projects, I would go to site and I'd go to the builder, what's that thing there called? Like, an eave or a facet or a gutter. I had absolutely no idea about the basics of building. And to be honest with you, even now I probably ask the odd stupid question, but that's how you learn. So I've got tolerant builders that go, Amanda, that's actually a facet, or that's actually a gutter or an eave, and you learn. It's amazing what you learn just by going through your first project. But I'm still learning. Every single project I go through, I'll learn a new element about building. But you've got to remember, you don't have to know all of this. That's the reason why you hire the experts, and you make sure you choose the right experts so that you can have faith in their ability to do all the things that you want to do. So how can I sit on a beach with the kids in school holidays, or sit in go away and travel? When you've got your computer and you've got your mobile phone, you've got all the people around you that are doing a lot of the legwork. And that's why this business is so amazing. So your role is almost like a project manager. So you're going, okay, so I've got a whiteboard in my office, and I'm a checklist sort of person. So I have my checklist. Okay, I need to call the builder here today, check on X, Y, Z. I need to follow up with the designer now to follow up the designs. And what I do is I'll go, okay, when I'm getting a new project done, I'll say, okay, I've got the planning design, you're going to do the planning design, how long do you think that's going to take you? They'll go, okay, I might need a week. I'll put that in my diary, and then on my in my diary come up, okay, a week later, okay, so how are our designs going? So they're busy spending the hours doing all the design in CAD and putting everything together. Yours is a 5-minute phone call. And that is why this business does not take too much time. Once you know the bouncing ball, and you've got your phone next to you, you call your builder, okay, so how are we going here, X, Y, Z, they've got a question on site, they call you, question answered, done. They're the ones spending hours on site, managing the trades, dealing with trades that aren't rocking up. They're the ones making sure that all the quality's there. You're a 5-minute conversation. Everything on track? Yep, awesome. Okay, see you next week. And that's why this business does not take much of your time. And that's what I love about it, because it gives you that time. You've still got that excitement and that involvement and that inspiration by running your own business and managing it, but you're not doing the legwork. That's all the people around you. That's the whole team that you build up around you. And so it's your team that gives you back your time. And that's the amazing thing. So yeah, the key message, property development is a business that gives you back time because you are leveraging the team. And your team is something that also evolves over time. So, once you've got your team, the ones that are working well for you, if they don't work for you, then you go and find another one that works for you. So your team evolves, but once you build it, when you've got that team around you that you can rely on, wow, it becomes like a really well-oiled machine. So do we have any questions around the whole team side of things? Stacey's asked, is it possible to build time clauses into building contracts that builders must build within a time frame? Absolutely, and I do that with my contracts as well. So I put in there what's called a liquidated damages clause. So it has a time frame in there to say, as part of a building tender they pull together, I'll say, okay, for a forced, say a 2-story development, it'll take, say, 9 months or 10 months. So we put that in stone. And so if they are over any longer than that, then they have to pay me a set amount or, set amount back if they're over. So you've got to bear in mind as well that you're going to need to factor in things like Christmas time and weather. And I certainly teach my students in terms of managing the weather. I've got one builder who's really very hot on it. So he'll send me a BOM report, a Bureau of Meteorology report that highlights all the really hot days and the wet days, and then that then affects your liquidated damages timing. But you can manage that thing really, really easy. So that's a good way of setting the expectations up front in terms of managing the time that you need as well. Zach asking, don't most contracts have that built in anyway? Zach, all contracts have a time frame built in, but there's nothing that the builder nothing in the build contract, whether it's HIA or MBA, that says they have to finish by that time. It's only if you put in a separate clause that you need to tie some sort of penalty into that time frame going. And look, to be honest with you, I have it in there, but I have a good relationship with my builders, so generally I know when things are going well, and if they're not going well, then I suddenly go, okay, guys, you realise we've got a liquidated damages clause, and I've only had to use it once, where I had a builder and they somehow brought in all these variations at the end, but they'd been a few weeks behind, or 4 weeks behind, and so the variations were nulled out by the liquidated damages clause. So it's good to have it there, but I manage that very, very carefully because I want to manage the relationship well as well, but I also want to make sure they know that there's a penalty there, and then it's up to us whether you choose to use that clause and charge them as well. So we've got some awesome questions coming through. As asked, do you use the same town planner and builder for every project, or do you have different company for different projects? I actually have a panel of builders, so I've got 3 to 5 builders that I use, and then I chop and change depending on, so I'll go out to tender, and then I choose whichever builder is priced right at the time, or who I'm having a good experience, and I just keep topping up that pool of builders. So I've always got choice. So I don't have everything in one builder. Town planner, I use the same town planner, only because they're awesome and they know how I work. So there's also a question there, do you need to have a lot of money to build your team? You need $0 to build your team. All it takes is a phone call, and when you use them, then you pay for them. But otherwise, you can still have them there, have your team ready to go, so that when you have a project, then you go, okay, I'm going to call my town planner now, they provide a service, they get paid. So that's the amazing thing about this business is you don't actually have any employees. You have this amazing team around you of consultants that you pay when you need them, and they provide a service, but there's no employees. So apart from I employ myself, but you don't have to manage that side of things as well. And then with everyone being consultants, you get amazing quality because you get to choose the quality. And if a conveyancer or if a builder's not doing a great job, then you get to choose next time if you use them or not. And that's an amazing thing as well. So Chris has asked, as your students, can we use your team? Absolutely. So I certainly share who I use, and then each different state. And what I also love is within the community as well. I'm really, really super proud of the community that I built up, because the value systems and the philosophy and the mindset, they're an amazing bunch of people that are really willing to share. So we've got this New South Wales posse that have created their own little subgroup that catch up together and share. But also we have a private Facebook group where if someone is looking for a trade or a consultant, they'll go, anyone got a good conveyancer here? And everyone shares. So that's my vision was to create this community of people who are really open to sharing. So yeah, I'm happy to share who I use, but equally, if you're in a different state, then people share too as well. So I think I have a philosophy, there's plenty out there for everyone, and the more we share and the more that the more you give, the more you get back, and that's certainly prevalent in the inner circle community, that's for sure. So Chris has asked, I always thought town planners were free. So to clarify that, you have town planners in council who do the assessments of all the planning rules in council. They are free. So you can call up a duty planner and ask them some planning questions. But if you are going to a panel and you have to speak on behalf of council, then that's when you use a town planning consultant. And quite often a lot of town planning consultants may have worked in council, and if they have, that's great because they understand how the dynamic of the councils work. So if you want a consultant to represent you, that's a town planning consultant, or otherwise you have your town planners that work in council, and they are free. I tend to find that the town planning consultant's the one you pay for. They are super sharp. They understand from a business perspective, not just a council perspective. And I've had some town planners that don't necessarily understand. At council, they don't. I've actually I knew a couple of loopholes within the development plan that the town planner consultant didn't know. So I loved it. I got a couple of projects through really easily because I knew this little shortcoming where if you were within a 400 metre radius of this shopping centre, you got a higher density. But the duty planner on the desk didn't actually realise that. So she was advising all these people other things that didn't even realise this loophole. So anyway,